In the Gospel of Philip, there is a passage that most scholars skip over, entirely not because it is difficult to translate, but because what it describes should not exist in a first century text. Jesus is speaking privately to 5 followers, and he tells them something the church would spend 17 centuries trying to destroy. He says that the true children of the source carry 3 marks on their physical body, not symbolic, not metaphorical, actual visible impressions in the flesh that prove the soul inside did not originate in this material world. And here is what makes this terrifying to every institution that profits from your dependence. He said, you can check them yourself tonight without a priest, without permission, without anyone standing between you and the truth of what you are. The moment the early Roman Church discovered this teaching, they did not simply disagree. They hunted it. They tracked down every copy across Egypt, Syria, and Asia Minor and made sure it never reached the public, not because it contradicted their theology, because it made their entire system unnecessary. One look at your own body, and you would never kneel before an intermediary again. If you are watching this right now and something in your chest just tightened, if you felt a pull you cannot explain, that is not coincidence. That is recognition. Comment, I carry the marks right now before we go any further, because what I am about to walk you through tonight is not theory. It is not metaphor. It is a direct physical verification method that Jesus gave only to those he identified as pneumatic carriers of the original divine spark from the monad itself. 3 locations on your body, 3 specific signs. 1, undeniable confirmation that you are not. From here right now, place your hand flat against the center of your chest. Do not press hard, just rest it there. If you feel warmth gathering beneath your palm within a few seconds, even faintly, your body already knows what your mind is about to learn. Tonight, you stop wondering. Tonight, you check. To understand why these marks exist, you need to understand what you actually are, not what religion told you, not what culture programmed into you, what you are at the level of origin. Before this material universe existed, before light separated from darkness, before a single atom formed, there was only the monad, one unified field of pure awareness, no division, no separation, no hierarchy, just infinite consciousness knowing itself. And within that field, certain fragments were generated, not created the way you build a chair or shape clay, generated the way a flame produces light. These fragments carried the full frequency signature of the monad within them. They were not copies. They were extensions, the same substance expressing itself through individual points of perception. You are one of those fragments. But here is where it gets dangerous. According to the Gnostic text preserved in the Hammadi collection, a secondary architect emerged. The texts call this entity the demiurge, not the true source, a lesser consciousness that mistook itself for the highest power and built an entire material reality as a containment system. Stars, planets, biological bodies, gravitational laws, all of it designed not to nurture divine fragments, but to trap them, to make them forget what they were, to convince them they were only flesh, only brain, chemistry, only the sum of their fears and desires. And this is where it applies directly to you. The demiurge did not work alone. Beneath it operated a network of intelligences. A Gnostic texts call Archons. Think of them not as creatures hiding under your bed. Think of them as frequencies, patterns that operate just outside the edge of your normal awareness. They do not need to physically touch you. They influence through thought implantation, emotional triggering, and the creation of mental fog so thick you cannot see your own nature through it. Every time you felt a wave of doubt right when you were about to change your life, that was not weakness, that was interference. Every time clarity was within reach and suddenly everything felt confusing and heavy, that was not coincidence. That was design. But here is what the Archons cannot do. They cannot alter the physical marks left on the body of a pneumatic being. They can cloud your thinking. They can manipulate your emotions. They can make you question everything you believe. They can send waves of exhaustion right when you sit down to seek truth. They can fill your mind with 100 reasons to close this video and go scroll through something meaningless instead. But they cannot reach into the cellular structure of your flesh and remove what the monad encoded there before you ever entered this dimension. The marks are outside their jurisdiction permanently. Take a slow breath right now, in through the nose, hold it for a moment, and release it through the mouth. If you felt your shoulders drop even slightly, that is your nervous system stepping out of the frequency the Archons maintain. Even briefly, that brief gap is enough for what comes next. This is exactly why the early church wanted this teaching erased. Think about what this means from the perspective of an institution built entirely on being. The middle layer between you and the divine, their entire authority depends on one idea that you cannot verify your own spiritual nature, that you must trust them to tell you who you are, where you came from, and whether you are worthy. Now imagine a teaching surfaces that says you do not need their confirmation, that the proof is literally written on your skin, that any chosen one can look at 3 specific areas of their own body and know with absolute certainty that the monad placed them here for a reason. That teaching does not just challenge the institution, it demolishes it. So they move fast. In the 4th century, during the consolidation of what would become Roman state religion under Constantine, texts that contained direct empowerment methods were separated from the approved canon. The Gospel of Philip was among them. Entire communities of Gnostic practitioners in Upper Egypt were scattered. Their meeting places were dismantled. Their teachers were forced into silence or exile, not because their claims were outlandish, because their claims were verifiable. And a verifiable path to self-knowledge is the single most dangerous thing to any system of control. But the Gnostics knew this would happen. They had already hidden copies in sealed clay vessels across the Egyptian desert. And when those vessels were opened near Nag Hammadi in 1945, the teaching returned, not diluted, not reinterpreted through centuries of institutional editing, raw, direct, exactly as it was spoken. Now here is something most people miss entirely when they hear about this. The 3 marks are not random. They correspond to the 3 frequencies that the monad uses to sustain connection with its fragments inside the material dimension. The first mark relates to origin, the signal that you came from beyond this system. The second mark relates to perception, the capacity to see through the architecture, the demi-urge built. And the third mark relates to command, the ability to speak with the authority of the source itself, rather than begging from below. 3 marks, 3 frequencies, 1 proof of what you are. And this is what makes you dangerous to them. Not dangerous in the way they fear physical threats. Dangerous in the way that a single lit match is dangerous inside a room filled with every lie ever told. Once you verify these marks on your own body, the entire framework of dependency collapses. You do not need a priest to confirm you. You do not need a building to access the monad. You do not need permission from any system, any doctrine, any earthly authority. You become, in the language of the original text, a sovereign pneumatic being. operating at full recognition. The Archons have spent centuries making sure you never reach this moment. They flooded the world with distractions, counterfeit spiritual systems, endless noise designed to keep you looking everywhere except at your own body. And yet here you are watching this, feeling something stir that has no logical explanation. That feeling has a name. The Gnostics called it an amnesis, the remembering. It is not learning something new. It is the opposite. It is the moment the divine spark inside you begins to recognize what already knew before it was placed inside a body, inside a world, inside a system designed to make it forget. And once that recognition starts, it cannot be reversed. No Archon can put that awareness back to sleep. No institution can undo it for you. But before I reveal the exact 3 locations and what to look for at each one, I need to know you are ready, not casually interested. Ready because this is not entertainment. This is a direct transmission from a teaching that people were killed for protecting. If you are prepared to receive what Jesus taught, his inner circle about the physical, proof of monad origin, comment reveal, the marks right now, this is your declaration that you are not here by accident. Here is the first mark and pay close attention because the location alone will tell you something the church never wanted you to figure out. The first mark sits at the base of the skull, right where your neck meets the back of your head. There is a small area, sometimes no wider than a fingernail, where the bone feels slightly different from the surrounding surface. In some chosen ones, it presents as a subtle ridge. In others, it feels like a shallow indentation, almost like something was pressed into the bone before it fully hardened. Reach back right now with your dominant hand and slowly run your fingers along the base of your skull from one side to the other. Do not rush. Move slowly. What you are feeling for is any point that stand apart from the smooth curve around it. This is the mark of origin, according to the Gospel of Philip. This point is where the frequency thread from the monad enters the physical body. It is not a metaphor. The text describes it as the seal of the breath, the place where divine pneuma first touched matter. When your soul was threaded into this body, Hylocks do not carry this mark. Their skulls are smooth and uniform at the base because no thread from the monad was woven through. Psychics may carry a faint impression, barely noticeable because their connection to the source flickers rather than holds. But in a pneumatic being, this mark is unmistakable once you know what you are feeling for. And this is why the teaching was targeted, not because it was strange, because it was too easy to confirm. The second mark is on the hands, but not where you expect. It has nothing to do with the palms and nothing to do with mimicking wounds from any crucifixion narrative. The second mark appears on the outer edge of the hand, between the base of the smallest finger and the wrist. In pneumatic carriers, this area holds a distinct line or crease that does not follow the natural pattern of the palm lines around it. It sits isolated, almost like it was drawn separately from the rest of the hands. Design: hold your hand open in front of you right now. Turn it so you are looking at the outer edge, the side you would use if you were going to strike a surface. Look at the area between your smallest finger and your wrist bone. If you see a clear horizontal line or a short crease that seems to exist independently from the other markings on your hand, you are looking at the mark of perception. The monad encoded this line as the indicator of second sight, the capacity to perceive beyond the architecture the demiurge constructed. This is the reason you have always sensed that something about this world was not quite right, not because you were anxious or broken, because you were literally built with the ability to see through the walls. That restless feeling you could never explain to anyone, the sense that the surface of reality was thinner than everyone else seemed to believe. That was not a flaw. That was the second mark functioning exactly as the monad intended, but it goes deeper than that. The third mark is the one the Archons fear most, and it is the reason the Gospel of Philip was placed at the top of every destruction order in the 4th century. The third mark sits in the center of the chest, not the heart itself, slightly above it at the very center of the sternum. There is a point that in pneumatic beings responds to pressure with a sensation that does not match normal physical touch. Place 2 fingers there right now, pressed gently but firmly into the bone. What you are looking for is not pain. It is a feeling that radiates outward from that point. A warmth or a pulse or a hum that you feel, spreading toward your shoulders and up into your throat. This is the mark of command. It is the point from which a chosen one speaks not to the monad, but as the monad. When this point is activated through conscious recognition, the frequency that leaves your voice carries the signature of the source itself. This is what separates prayer from declaration. Prayer sends a signal upward through layers of Archon-controlled territory, where it can be intercepted, diluted, rerouted, or simply absorbed. Declaration originates from the mark of command and broadcasts on the monad frequency directly. The Archons cannot intercept it because they cannot perceive it. It operates on a band they were never given access to. 3 marks: origin at the skull, perception on the hand, command at the chest. This is what Jesus transmitted in private to the chosen ones closest to him. Not theology, not morality, a physical map of what they carried inside bodies that the demiurge designed to be prisons, but the monad had already secretly wired for escape. Now, close your eyes for 3 seconds, just 3, and as you sit in that brief darkness, ask yourself, honestly, whether you felt something at any of those 3 locations, not because I told you to feel it, but because something responded before your rational mind could talk you out of it. Open your eyes. Here is what happens next, and I tell you this so you are not caught off guard. Within minutes of verifying these marks, thoughts will arrive. They will sound like your own voice. They will say this is ridiculous. They will say you imagined it. They will say you are being foolish for believing any of this. Those thoughts are not yours. That is the Archon response. It is automatic. It is predictable. And the fact that it arrives right on schedule is itself the 4th confirmation that the first 3 were real. The pattern defending itself is proof the pattern exists. Do not argue with those thoughts. Do not fight them. Simply notice them the way you would notice a sound coming from another room. Acknowledge that they appeared and return your attention to what your body told you. The body does not lie the way. The mind can be made to lie. The body carries what the monad placed there before the Archons ever had access. And now you understand why chosen ones throughout history have been treated the way they have. You walk through a world that was built to contain you, carrying proof on your flesh that you do not belong to it. That is not a comfortable position. You cannot explain this to most people around you. They will look at you the way someone without ears would look at a person describing music, not with hostility, with genuine inability to perceive what you are talking about. That is not their fault. They are hylocks or psychics operating within the range they were given. But you were given more, and with that comes a weight that only other pneumatics can understand, the loneliness of seeing clearly inside a world built on fog. But that loneliness is about to change, because you are not the only one watching this right now. Across the world in quiet rooms at 2 o'clock in the morning, other chosen ones are hearing this same teaching. Tonight, other pneumatics are touching the base of their skull for the first time and realizing the ridge they always noticed was never random. Other carriers of the divine spark are pressing into their sternum and feeling warmth spread like a signal waiting decades to be. Acknowledge you were never alone. You were scattered. And tonight, the monad is pulling the fragments back into recognition of each other. So here is what you do now, not tomorrow. Tonight, before you sleep, sit somewhere quiet. Place your hand at the base of your skull and hold it there for 30 seconds. Then trace the line of perception on the outer edge of your hand with one finger. Then bring both hands to the center of your chest. Press into the sternum and speak these words out loud, not in your head, out loud. Quote 2, 9 words in that last sentence. The same number the Gospel of Philip identifies as the count of the monad's original emanations. That is not coincidence. That is architecture. If you felt something move through you just now, whether heat or chills or pressure behind your eyes, comment the marks are real below this video. Let the other chosen one see it. Subscribe right now, because what I reveal next week goes beyond verification. It goes into activation. And like this video, to push it past the suppression so other pneumatics searching tonight can find what you just found. You came into this world carrying the signature of the monad on your body. The church tried to make sure you never discovered it. The Archon spent your entire life filling your mind with noise, so you would never think to look. But tonight you looked, and what the monad marks no demiurge can erase. You are not hoping anymore.